G'day guys, Rick here from Perth Bullion Exchange, perthbullion.com.au, and just wanted to take a minute to come on and talk a little bit about some of the price movements that's happened in the last sort of, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what they might mean, what might have caused them, and what we think might be happening moving forward, I suppose. So most of what we've seen in the spot gold, and not so much the silver, but certainly in the spot gold price movement, has been in US terms, and that is more linked to the strength in the US dollar than the weakness in the metal price, if that makes sense. So we've been, in Aussie dollar terms, quite insulated. So whilst we've seen some significant drops, 2-3%, I believe it was last week in gold, in US terms, that hasn't translated through to lower prices in Aussie terms due to the weakness in the Aussie dollar. So as gold's come down, so is the Aussie dollar. So gold's only down, might be 1% in Aussie dollar terms, but in US dollar terms it's down 2 or 3. That for me is sort of a positive factor because Trump's the wild card obviously here in the pricing, so we don't know what he's going to do as far as tariffs and that go, and obviously none of this information is financial advice, but with Trump strengthening the US dollar, to me it's a bit of a fallacy to believe that introducing tariffs left, right and centre is a strengthening concept for their currency, but this is how the markets are interpreting it. So they're putting bets on the US dollar being stronger. Trump being the wild card, he could pull those or put them back in at any time he likes, as we've all seen on social media. He just sort of jumps around, does whatever he pleases. But for me, it's a bit of a positive for the precious metals here in Australia because if we do see a weakening US dollar and therefore a strengthening Aussie, which would bring the metals price down in Aussie dollar terms, we'd also see a strengthening in the precious metals price because none of the movements, well, in my opinion, not a lot of the movements we've seen in the last week, 2 weeks, have much of anything to do with the underlying value of the precious metals. It's more been about the underlying value of the currency that we're comparing the precious metals to. So a weakening US dollar would see the Aussie surge, and you would think that would see a drop in precious metals prices. But just in my opinion, I think that we would see an increase in precious metals in US dollar terms equivalent to the weakening in the US dollar against the Aussie. So I think we're sort of insulated a little bit there, and obviously the holy grail for what most people are looking for in precious metals is if the precious metals continue to strengthen against the US dollar and the Aussie doesn't, then we're going to see an outsized growth in Aussie dollar terms in the precious metals prices, which is sort of what I've been looking for over the last 6 months. The Aussie dollar sort of started dropping a bit faster than I sort of thought it would late last year, in the sort of third and last quarter of last year. But it had a momentary strengthening over the last sort of, let's say February. We had a momentary strengthening in the Aussie dollar in the lead up to the RBA cutting rates, and that's since capitulated, and now we've seen like a really dramatic fall in the Aussie dollar. And I think, just in my opinion, I feel like the Aussie dollar, whilst I think we're getting some temporary strength in the Aussie dollar, just around it being like a bit oversold, but I feel like that decline in the Aussie dollar is going to continue, and I wouldn't be very surprised if we saw something in the mid-50s towards the back end of this year, which even if gold and silver stay the same price in US dollar terms, that's going to mean a pretty significant gain in value in Aussie dollar terms of somewhere between 10 and 15%. So I think there's still a really good opportunity there for Australian stackers who are buying metals that you could see some pretty outsized returns in Aussie dollar terms. And I think, there's a window of opportunity which we sort of spoke about last year, which I think is still current. I think the opportunity is slowly starting to fade now, but I think if you're waiting on the sidelines, gold's a little bit toppy at the moment. Like, it's obviously come back a little bit over the last week, but it's still pretty up there. But I think there's still a really good opportunity if you're dollar cost averaging to sort of pick up some metals over the next 3 or 4 months before we sort of lock in for the ride. So it's just my opinion. Obviously, we're not trying to encourage anyone to buy more metals than they can afford. It's just an opinion. And, for all those people that have bought over the past 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're all in a really good spot now. And I think it's time to sort of lock in and hold on for the ride as we move into this new year. So that's it from us. We just wanted to sort of have a bit of a chat about it. I know a lot of people get a little bit nervous when there's a bit of volatility, but everyone's just got to remember precious metals is a long-term investment and a long-term game. So you just need to be patient, pick a amount that you're investing that fits your risk appetite, and hold on for the ride, because I think it's going in one direction in my opinion, and it'll be interesting to see where it ends up at year end. And I suppose on year end, I mean, I've said it to a few customers in store, who've just asked for an opinion. Again, it's not financial advice, but I don't think that it would be silly to suggest that we're looking at a $6,000 an ounce gold by the end of the year. Silver's a little bit harder. We haven't seen the ratio come back as I sort of expected it would, down towards the 80. But obviously if that does happen, which I'm still pretty hopeful that it does, we're going to see some outpaced gains in silver, which we could see 30 to 40% gain in silver if we see a bit of a pullback in that ratio. So that's it from us. Thanks so much for watching. We will be bringing out a few more videos. We've got some unboxings coming up real soon, so keep an eye out for that. So if you're not liked, shared, subscribe to the channel, please do that. And we'll see you all next time. Cheers, guys.